So today we're going to continue to take a look at the alternative future of the world. We are now on to part 4 of this series, and we are moving right along. And here's a quick recap of what has happened in the last video. We saw the collapse of China through a civil war, we saw Morocco getting some land in the North African War, and we saw the formation of the East African Federation. So now, before we get into today's scenario, I'd like to remind you to please like and subscribe and show some support to the channel. It is greatly appreciated. Let's get right into today's scenario. So we're actually going to be starting today's scenario with the alliances. So here's roughly what the alliances map looks like right now. We're actually going to be getting a new alliance. And that alliance being between India, Tibet, Nepal, and Bhutan. So this is mostly a neutral alliance. This isn't really a defensive or an attack alliance. It's mostly economical and really just to kind of support each other. We also see Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan join the Russian alliance. So now this alliance is basically just a CSTO, so I'm just going to be calling it that now. We have Mongolia and the northern Chinese province join this alliance. And we have Serbia continuing to be denied access for some strange reason. Wonder what that could be. We also have Iran joining the CSTO, as well, their alliance has all kind of just been destroyed. So now the Russian threat isn't mostly just centered around here. It's now this entire area. So with this, NATO decides to lift some of the restrictions for joining the alliance, and we actually see the formation of a much larger alliance. We see the PDL and NATO joining together to form a new alliance called the World Defense Organization, or the PDO. This alliance will work all around the world to stop Russia and the CSTO's expansion, as well as any other enemies that they may have. So now we're going to get into the actual wars of this video. We have Mexico breaking out into a civil war. So now we're probably around 2050 to 2060 in this alternate timeline, and so we can start to kind of steep away from realism now. Each of these different rebel pockets has different ideals, but they all have the same goal of overthrowing the modern Mexican government. They all work together to kind of take out Mexico, but they don't exactly like each other. But they're not going to attack each other, as their main goal is to take out Mexico. Now we also have the US joining this war, and they say they're going in to stabilize and keep the peace. We'll see how good they do about that as we begin to move into the Baja area and down south of Texas. They move in from many pockets along the American-Mexican border, and yeah, the Mexican military doesn't really stand a chance against the US military. The Mexican military begins to become mobilized, and now they do take out this one rebel pocket and begin to push back against this one in the south. That'll be about it for them, as now these rebels may be supported by other countries, who's to say, but they begin to now push through, and it's not going too well for Mexico now. Let's just say that. And the Americans completely capture the Baja California peninsula, and they continue to move down the Mexican coastline. They take out large areas in the north, and continue to push out from all along their border now. They push down the eastern coast, and yeah, Mexico really stands no chance against the American military. They agree with the Mexican rebels, they won't attack each other for now, and they continue to push into Mexico. The rebel groups take out the rest of the coastline, and Mexico finally decides to surrender. So now let's take a look at this peace treaty. And so in this peace treaty, we see that Mexico is now very divided and split up. The US annexing most of the northern provinces of Mexico. We have the northern rebel group gaining this province here. We have a new Yucatan country, as well as many other rebel groups get their own country now too in the south. Modern Mexico is still here, it's just very crippled, and maybe has a more American government. The US does ask them if they want to join the WTO, but they decline for now, as they just want to work on rebuilding the country. Now we have another major conflict taking place, this time over here in Africa. Turns out Ethiopia was building dams along the Nile River, and Egypt and Sudan aren't very happy with that, and so they declare war on Ethiopia to try and stop that. We also have Eritrea joining on the side of Sudan and Egypt, don't like Ethiopia, and we actually have the East African Federation joining with Ethiopia because they don't like Sudan. With that, we have Somalia joining on the side of Egypt and Sudan because of tensions with Ethiopia. And with that, we have Somaliland joining the side of the blue team. And yeah, let's get into the fighting now. The blue team quickly taking out Somalia, as they're not a very stable country, and they don't have that strong of a military, and so that knocks out one front for them. As that was happening, they lost some ground in South Sudan, and some in Ethiopia. Sudan begins to push down to South Sudan from all across their border, and they continue to push into the former country. They push into Ethiopia slightly, but they don't make it that far. And we have Ethiopia taking out a long area of Eritrea along the coast, but they can't make it quite far because Egyptian forces have just arrived. They completely take out the Ethiopian forces in Eritrea, and they push into Ethiopia from there. This goes very well for them, as, again, this isn't a very stable area of the world. Egypt is quite strong. They continue to push through Ethiopia, and again, this is going quite well for them. Now, the East African Federation pushing back in South Sudan against Sudan, but Ethiopia isn't doing very well, as they've lost a lot of ground in their capital. It's from here that Ethiopia now surrenders, and we'll see the end of this war now. And so in this peace treaty, we can see that a lot actually changed in this area. We see that Sudan got a lot of area of South Sudan, as well as Ethiopia. Eritrea got land out of Ethiopia, and Ethiopia and Somalia are now joined into one country. The African Federation got some land out of southern Somalia, and Somaliland is now released. And Africa looks quite different now. We now have one more conflict that's going to be taking place in this video, and that is going to be Serbia invading Kosovo. Now, typically, there wouldn't be any problem with this, since Kosovo and Serbia are both not part of any alliance, but Kosovo and Albania are very close friends, and so Albania will be joining this war on the side of Kosovo, as well as Bosnia. The thing about Bosnia is that they have a very large Serb population, which is going to be starting a civil war, which probably would have happened a long time ago already in this timeline, but it's happening now. And because Bosnia is part of NATO, NATO is going to be coming to their aid in this civil war. And so we actually have NATO coming to the aid of Bosnia in this war, and now they're attacking Serbia as well. Yeah, it doesn't go that well. And so in this peace treaty, really nothing changed. Kosovo is now a fully recognized country, and Serbia is a lot more NATOized. We can actually now see that Kosovo has joined NATO, and Serbia has a new government who is very pro-NATO, and they actually end up joining. Russia really doesn't like this, but doesn't care that much, as, well, they have a lot of allies, so they're feeling good. I know I was just saying NATO, I do mean the WDO, so if you do hear me saying NATO, I mean the WDO. And so now, before this video ends, a few more events are going to be taking place. We have a very large union taking place in Western Africa, between many countries over here. This union is mostly for economical purposes, as a lot of these countries' economies are now crashing, some of them from wars, some of them from civil wars, and stuff like that. This union may grow over time, but for now it consists mainly of just these countries. Nigeria isn't very happy about this, as maybe they're looking to expand this way, but they can still expand this way. They might not want to go after Chad, but they do begin to line the border of Cameroon, and Cameroon is very scared. Another union taking place is over here in China. A lot of these countries didn't really want their independence after the war, but they were forced to have it, and so now they're going to reunite into China. So there's our newly unified China, and this country down here is actually going to join the WDO. As I said in the last video, they had applied to join the PDL, but the PDL doesn't exist anymore, but they do get into the WDO. One last unification taking place is between Uruguay and Brazil. Now in this alternate timeline, Uruguay's economy has been collapsing, and so they joined Brazil in order to stabilize that. And I just learned of a new alliance that I've been forgetting for the entire series, and that is called the Rio Pact. This is a mainly South American alliance consisting of the countries you see here in yellow, as well as the United States. And so that will be it for today's video. I'd like to thank you all for watching again, and if you did enjoy this video, please feel free to like and subscribe to the channel and show your support. It is greatly appreciated. If you have any suggestions for this series, please leave them in the comments. I will likely read them all, and you might be able to shape this series in a way. Again, thank you all for watching,